for people who don't know you, let everybody know what your name is and what you do.
My name's Woolgrove. I'm a professional boxing trainer based in Essex, outside London in the UK. And I train around 6 professional boxers, all different levels, with a few boxers just turning pro, coming through. I've been involved in some pretty decent fighters in the past. And I run a thing called Winners Boxing, which is for underprivileged children and children with issues. Gives them an opportunity to learn to box and learn the disciplines and the things that set them up for adult life. And it gives them an opportunity to do something with themselves. So I'm a pretty busy boy with that. All these activities take 7 days a week, every day, all day, and evenings. So I'm a 100% boxing man.
So got to find out what your backstory is. How did you get involved into boxing?
I come from, I come from boxing family. The last 3 generations of my family, my brother was an ABA champion that turned pro. Unfortunately, had a car accident at night to turn pro. My dad was a top amateur coach, England coach. He runs some big clubs in London. He was a fighter in the 40s, boxed in New York during the war and things like that. And my dad's father fought in Gallipoli. He was a heavyweight champion all throughout Britain and Europe and the British Empire and things like that. He was obviously a pro. So I just come from generations of boxers, really. My boxing career was cut short because I joined the army.
Right. So what made you go to the army?
Yeah, I grew up in Cornwall. There's not really a lot going on down there. You either work on the farms, on fishing boats, or you join the Marines or the army or something like that. I joined the army. I chose to join the army, and as soon as I went in the army, I continued to box and box throughout my time in the army. And when I came out, I looked to turn pro. Never turned pro for a few injuries, a little bit too immature for it, and things like that. So I've always drifted in and out of boxing, and ended up becoming I'm a former amateur coach, and now I'm a professional coach. It's
interesting because I know, apart from what you see on television, I've never been in the army. I've only seen things via the media, and in terms of boxing in the army, the images I've always seen is like this sergeant major, having a crack at a guy that's just inferior, and the inferior has a word with the sergeant, says, "Right, son, you think you're something special? Let's get in a boxing gym and have it out." And those are the images that always go through my mind. It doesn't correlate. And of course, the other thing is Nigel Benn obviously went through the army and he did well and obviously turned on to pro. And we all know where Nigel Benn went on to being a world champion and a successful world champion at 2 weight divisions. But in terms of army, Nigel
Benn was terrorised the army boxing for all the years he was in. He was a Royal Fusilier. I met his first ever coach, his little Chinese guy, actually lives in Romford.
Right.
He's helped me treat my hand injuries, which I've gone on to help other fighters with using his methods. But the thing is, if you can join the army and not even see a pair of boxing gloves or a boxing ring, it just depends what unit you join. I currently train members of the parachute regiment, the 2nd and 3rd Battalion. They're the elite of the British Army. They're the best soldiers in the world. 3 para are the army champions, and 2 para a whisker behind them. Do you know what I mean? They're probably just as good as each other. But I've got a boxer from 2 para now. His name's Daniel Holmes. Right. He's an unbeaten amateur fighter, and he's actually he's just turning professional as we speak. His paperwork's gone through, and he'll be looking to make his debut at your call in July, and that would be huge for the British Army. I mean, if you've got a well-known British Army boxer with a massive following, he can sell up to 2,000 tickets on his debut.
Wow.
So it's exciting times for the British Army, and obviously the parachute regiment. I'm strongly involved with, and have been for years. Are at the forefront of army boxing.
So how did you learn? I mean, obviously you did your stuff in the army, and you come back to the army, and you gathered the information you've got to be a trainer and then coach now. But how did you go about getting your certification to be a qualified professional coach?
I made the mistake, really. I was never confident. I've been in and out of boxing all my life. Before I was probably could have. I from the age of 18, 19, I picked up so much from my father and things like that I could have been a coach straight away.
Right.
I've always a little bit, when I was like in the 20s and 21s, I was a little bit of a coiled spring, so I was never really I was too immature to have been a really good fighter. I was a little bit too wayward, I'd been in trouble when I was younger, so the coach thing was something that was going to come natural to me. I always knew little things that my dad had taught me, and that you would never learn in an amateur gym. So being a coach was the natural route for me once I'd grown up a little bit. But I coached white collar, the unlicensed scene, which is huge in England, and I've been in a number of gyms and things. I've learnt the trade, and then I thought, well, I'm around the mid-30s now. You know, I'm sort of past the 20s phase. People respect me as being around the block, and I'm not too old, not too young. So I decided to turn my pro license over, and it was the best thing I've ever done, really. I mean, my first pro corner I'd done, which was my corner, was be a flavorist on a WBC show in Romania on the Manuel Shah undercard, and he was an amateur world champion with I think it was 200 amateur fights, 185 wins. He'd won everything he could win as an amateur. So as my first pro corner on a huge show in front of 15,000 mad screaming Romanians on every TV channel on mainland Europe, that was my debut sort of thing. Wow. So I hit the ground running, really. Do you know what I mean?
So once you've got that, I mean, that's quite a high aim to come in at. I mean, clearly that's not going to be every day. And of course, you're working with the kids in the community, and you're doing the amateur stuff. How does one stay level-headed after doing something like that as your first entry in? Because everyone doesn't get the entry in like that, like you've had.
Yeah, I know that. I was quite spoiled with that, really, for my first ever pro fight, to have as my first corner, and to be sharing a changing room with Noel Gerber, who's a massive cruiserweight talent from Germany. We had, Fritz, the famous German coach, in the changing room. It was, quite overwhelming. It was brilliant. And in the next changing room, we had Scott Welch, who's been great to me. He fought for a world title, former British champion, Emmanuel Shah, and we all walked away from it friends. So it was everything else, I suppose, is a little bit of a come down from that. But the thing is, I only work with fighters that I'm emotionally connected with, involved with, that I've been with for a while, and so these smaller fights, these smaller hall fights, they mean a little bit more to me, because the Craig Hardings, who's now a professional and fought York Hall, and the Dan Holmeses and the Sam Smart, these guys aren't just boxers. These are some of my best friends. So it's very, I can be in a room with them, and the night before a fight, and I can hear them snoring, and I'll be sitting up all night like a nervous wreck. So, the passion and the emotional sort of connection is very high for me. So it doesn't matter if we're fighting someone's back garden; it's all the same to me, whether it's Madison Square Garden or York Hall. It's huge to me. Do you know what I mean? Right.
I mean, every fighter, every coach has got a different philosophy. And, I've spoken to a few coaches along the years, and talking to Peter Fury, talked to James Ali Bashir. That's 2 trainers already. And Bashir's had 40 years experience in the game. Peter Fury's not as many years as Bashir. I mean, Bashir's talked about when he was run in the times of Ali Muhammad Ali. So that's a lot of experience there. What do you bring to the table as a trainer, and what are your philosophies as a trainer?
What I thought as a trainer is, the thing is, there's a lot of pro fighters now, a lot of people turning over now, and there's a lot of pro coaches. A lot of guys seem to be getting their licenses quite easy. So I thought being a pro coach isn't such a hard thing to get anymore. It's some people feel it's lost its edge a little bit and things like that, but I decided if I'm just being a normal coach, I decided to make myself an asset as a coach. So I concentrate on, I'm a master of wrapping hands. I pride myself on my wrapping the hands, the cuts, and I'm quite proficient on the pads. And I bring my own style to the table, my own style of fighting, and what I do is, with my fighters, we don't have one gym which we stay in. I will move my fighters around. I recently visited Jenny Williams, who's got a good little stable in Romford. He's a good pro coach who's going places. He's doing really well. Right. And then we went down to visit Dominic Negus, a former cruiserweight. We trained at his gym recently. We've been at Terry Dunstan's gym. We used to go there 3 days a week. So I find by moving around some gyms and just handing my fighters over to the other coaches, we pick up new bits and pieces, and we can bring all stuff that we bring back to the table. And I bring a lot of my military experience in as well. Do you know what I mean?
That's pretty refreshing, because I do know within the boxing industry that a lot of trainers like to keep themselves to themselves. This is my style. This is my gym. I don't want anybody stealing my fighters and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sharing my knowledge with you. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. So how do you overcome that?
The thing is, I think, like someone said to me, Ross, he said to me, when I started as a coach, very good bit of advice was given to me by a guy in Colchester, who's a very popular coach, who's done very well. he started Lee Purdy off, and he said to me, he said, Ross, you've got to be very thick-skinned in this game, and, you know, unbelievably thick-skinned, and you've got to be shrewd, and you've got to be one step ahead of everything that's going on and things, and all the rest of it. And I find that if I move my lads round to these other gyms and train with all these other gyms that are tempting gyms, like to go to, a lot of people want to go to the TKO. If I take my fights to the TKO and that, they know what they know they can go there whenever they want. They can go to these other gyms and spar and train and mix with these other people. So if you just keep your fighters in one place, they're always going to be looking and wondering. They're always going to have that little thing, what they're doing in the other gym, especially if they've only ever been with you.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So if we move around the gyms, they don't need to change, you know, get the switch camp and I want to go that, it looks better in that gym or that coach. They get the benefit of that coach anyway. So I keep all my options open. I've got a lot of friends in boxing. We move around all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Let me throw that back at you now, and I'll throw two names up at you: Eddie Hearn,
yeah, go for it.
Frank Warren. Now,
Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren.
I think they're stopping fighters. Like, I'm not going to sign a contract with you. I'll sign a contract with you. I'm going to terminate my contract with you. I'm going to sign with you. It's like a seesaw. So what's going on there? Can you relate what you're talking about there to Warren and Hearn? Maybe they can learn something from that.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many rumours about Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn at the moment. I heard that a lot of fighters now that sign with Eddie Hearn that want to get on the big shows, deliver the big fights. Eddie Hearn does that. He gets the big fights, you know. I got told recently that fighters that sign with Eddie Hearn are encouraged to go to the gym Dan Barker is in, Sims's gym, and I've been told that Frank Warren fighters are encouraged to go to TKO. So, or do you know what I mean? If you live down around where we live, so obviously the natural thing for a lot of fight coaches now, if that's, you know, if it's quite intimidating, thought that, do you know what I mean? So I know that a lot of boys are going to promoters like Steve Goodwin. Right. You know what I mean? Who sort of stays neutral and he stays out of it, you know? Yeah. He's certainly an up-and-coming promoter in the UK. He's absolutely going places. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But Warren and Eddie Hearn, I've noticed with the Hearns and the Warrens over the years, they have spells where one's strong and then when one dies off a little bit and then the other one's stronger. Do you know what I mean? I think they'll always be the head of British boxing, but they're just the power will just shift through time. Do you know what I mean?
Now, I don't know if it's just me seeing this or I'm on another planet and there's more people that agree with me in this, but from what I'm seeing from Eddie Hearn, yes, he's delivering world title eliminators and yes, he's delivering world title shots. But what I'm noticing is that fighters that fight on Eddie Hearn's bills, that go to fight for world title shots, are getting smashed to bits. They're not good enough. But yet, Frank Warren's securing world title shots, and the guys that he's getting his fighters against are better matched, and the fights seem to be closer. Now, is that an illusion there, or is that?
No, I've seen that. I agree with you. You know, some of these things are coming out now, and we're going to have people watching this, listening to this, and going to try and tear us apart. I mean, the thing is, I've sat up till 2 o'clock in the morning and watched fighters from Eddie Hearn's stable fighting out in America and other places like that, and they've been out of their depth. But then I've seen some of Frank Warren's fighters boxing for WBO titles at home against fighters that really probably shouldn't be fighting for world titles. So I think if you want to become a world champion, you need to stick with Warren and go down the WBO route, because that just seems that's just a no-brainer. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, let's look at it this way. You've got more of a chance of being a world champion with Warren and staying a world champion with Warren that way than the Hearn route.
I think so.
At the moment, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to mention names because we're all friends on the British boxing scene, but I can think of a British world champion that's been really lucky to hold on to his belts recently, and I know that if he'd stayed with Warren, he'd have probably got easier fights.
Well, I know.
You know what I mean?
I've just talked about one world champion. I've just finished talking about Ricky Burns, who was talked with Ray Beltran. Now, I spoke to Ray Beltran.
Yeah. You just read my mind then, didn't you?
Right. I spoke to Ray Beltran about 15 minutes before talking to you. Now, I predicted that Ray Beltran would drop Ricky Burns with the left hook. I believe Ray Beltran was a better fighter than Ricky Burns. I felt that he was lucky against Gonzalez. He should have lost against Beltran, and God only knows what's going to happen when he fights Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
Because that broken jaw is going to be an issue there as well.
Yeah, the thing is as well, did Ricky Burns have a fight before that where the guy was ahead in the fight and then just got his stall?
The Gonzalez fight.
Yeah, sure.
Gonzalez was pushing him to a pulp. It was hurting him, rocking him all around the ring, and then he just sat down on the stool randomly and said, I've got an injury, like he kind of quit on the stool.
Yeah, that was a strange scenario, and you know the score.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, there were people, because you get the live streams via internet, and there were people on the streams and the YouTube community saying, Hearn offered the Gonzalez an opportunity to fight in the prize fighter, so that's why he pulled out of the fight.
Fair enough.
The YouTube community can be very funny. They can be very funny, but we all know that Gonzalez was on his way to winning that fight without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, he certainly was. Yeah, and Beltran broke down. I think I saw an X-ray on Facebook of the break.
Yes.
Ricky Burns suffered, and I don't know. Was it? I'm not sure. They said it was in the fourth round. Was it? He got his jaw broke.
I'm sure it's second
round. You know what?
The left hook.
Second round. I tell you what, to boxed on, right? People give Ricky a hard time over that fight, and they need to lay off that. All right, he got the nod, whatever, but the box, that was a clean break.
Absolutely.
Right? And he was, and all people. I read on cool stuff on Facebook about Ricky Burns. People that were like sort of cheering him up the day before, and I tell you what, right? He stayed in there and he gritted it out right to the end with that broken jaw, And look at that guy in Vegas. I don't even want to say his name, right?
Oh yeah.
He quits every chance he gets. Do you know what I mean? And he probably gets paid more.
But the thing is, I was talking to Doug Fisher about this the other day. He's a well-respected journalist in boxing. And I said to him, you know what? At the end of the day, we know what Ortiz does. He's a quitter. So, what do you expect? So he gets hit on the chin, he falls over. What do you want? He's a quitter.
Yeah, the one that done me, right? The one that done me the most with him, and that with Mayweather, they weren't two knockout shots. He got it with the left hook, right hand. You can take. They don't knock people out them shots. He completely played on it. He was looking for a way out, and I just think I'm surprised promoters put him on his show. Yet he still gets big fights, getting paid, and he's still fighting on it. And I just don't believe it. And I knew he wasn't going to beat that Collazo. That Collazo is better than people think. I remember him boxing Ricky Hatton. What he done? He was catching Ricky Hatton, snapping Ricky Hatton's head back. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Collazo's a dangerous. He's dangerous, but then they're thinking now putting Collazo in with Thurman. I don't think that's a very good idea.
I think Thurman will stop him.
So do I. Absolutely. I don't think that's the right fight. And,
the thing is, I've heard people say, but Hatton couldn't stop him, Thurman won't stop him. But Hatton wasn't. If you look at Hatton's knockouts, Hatton didn't knock a lot of people out with headshots. It was all body shots. Thurman is knocking people out with single shots, headshots. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's not having to smash their body to pieces and wear them down. He's knocking guys out cold with either hand.
While we're on the subject of that division, I talked to Ryan Rhodes tonight as well. And
Ryan Rhodes from Sheffield.
Yes, Ryan Rhodes from Sheffield. I spoke to him tonight.
Yeah, he's been in the game a long time.
Yeah, I had a long chat with him, and I was a big fan of Ryan Rhodes, so it was a pleasure to talk to Ryan. It all started over Twitter because I was doing this investigation about Kell Brook. I've been on the fence about Kell. Do like Kell, but not sure if he's world class. For a guy who's been around for so long, not fought for world title, the alarm bells start to ring, and you want to see him in against the best. That. I don't like talking about British fighters and sound derogatory and negative. It's too easy to do that, and obviously I might end up sharing a changing room with Kell Brook or being in the same gym as him or something like that. And to be fair, he's one of boxing's nice guys. He's a good guy and that. But he is. He's an all-round good guy. His whole gym, they're boxing people, and he's a decent guy. But I've got to admit, I have been a little bit shocked with a couple of his performances where I thought he could have upped a gear against Matthew Hatton, and he never. Yep. And the Carson Jones fights was very worrying. Was very worrying watching that. And if that was a Furman, he wouldn't have finally seen. And Furman's not even a world champion yet, is he? No, he's not. He's not. But he's on the way to it.
Yeah, I mean, no, don't forget, it's not just Furman, like that division's red hot, right? The Povodkinov, mate, he's probably more dangerous than all of them.
Like, tell me about it. Povodnikov, you've got, and you've got the Pacquiaos, the Mayweathers, the Tim Bradleys.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the best division in boxing I've seen for years. And when I started working with B.F. Flavors, the world amateur champion, who's a big prospect, people said, "Oh, do you reckon he'll go all the way?" And that, and then this, and I looked at you think of the welterweight division, and I looked at all them names you just mentioned, and I sort of said to like the rest of his sponsor at the time, I said, "You might want to stick him in the middleweight division." You know what I mean? You might want to stick a couple of pound on him because that welterweight division's red hot, and it's got to be without doubt the best division in boxing there's been for years.
Absolutely. In a recent interview I did with Keith Thurman, he said that the welterweight division is a bit of an illusion because a lot of the welterweights are actually light welters moving up that have got lazy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but it's the money division as well, isn't it? Like you can earn a lot more money just by putting a couple of pounds on and things like that. I don't know. He's probably more in the loop than America. It's more of American division than anything else. So he's probably a little bit more in the loop about it. But the big fights are at welterweight at the moment. That's where it's at. And that and the thing is, you could be you could. I don't know. I would avoid the welterweight. If I had a fight, I would put him in the welterweight division. So I don't know why lazy fighters would go into the welterweight division, because that's a division you really need to stay out of. How are you supposed to become a world champion in the welterweight division with Pacquiao, Mayweather, and that? Drop down a fight, you got a better chance fighting Danny Garcia, haven't you?
Yeah, but if you do step up, as we're talking about Kell Brook, if you do step up and you beat one of these guys, you are going to be a legit fighter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's not beating them. He's not beating them guys, mate. He's not beating them guys. No, he'll just get a W. Who's the weakest of the champions at the moment? Who do you consider to be weakest of them welterweight champions?
I would go with Porter, to be honest.
I think he's good, mate. He really surprised me with Devin Alexander. Really surprised me, mate.
But Alexander, he didn't look great against Lee Purdy, to be honest. And you just think if somebody puts it on Alexander and really puts it on him...
He broke his hand. Didn't he break his hand against Lee Purdy? They broke it quite early in the second round, I read.
Yeah.
He beat Lee Purdy one-handed.
That's
you know what I mean?
I mean, but... Yeah. Lee Purdy is pretty limited when it comes to world level. He's good at domestic and possibly European level, but when you're going to a world level now, it's a different situation altogether. Yeah,
Lee Purdy comes from the town I live in, the next town up from the town I lived in for years, yeah. But I don't, everyone assumes I know him. I've never met Lee, and I've been in the same sort of building. He was in, like, with brushed shoulders. I've never stopped and spoke to him. I know his family, and I know all the people who's been around him, but I don't actually know Lee, which is quite surprising, really, considering that, there's not many professional boxers where I live. There's not many at all. So I don't really know him, but I've got to be honest with you, I'm surprised he's had some of the fights that he's had. I mean, he got knocked out the other day for the European title.
Yep.
He put up a good show in that, but the guy just came through at the end, and I thought he was starting to get to Lee. But I think Lee would be a great British champion. Once Frankie Gavin moves on, I think if Lee came back down in class to British level, I think he could win that Lonsdale outright, grab a Commonwealth and sit on that for a while. But going off the world title fights, that's a bridge too far.
I tell you what, I'd pay to watch Lee Purdy fight Kell Brook.
I think Kell Brook a bit too. I just think bit too fresh for him, bit too clever, probably a bit too strong as well.
Interesting, but Purdy's going to come and keep coming forward, and he does.
But he's got eye problems now. He's been stopped a few times. I just think that coming forward with limited sort of head movement and that, I think that's caught up with him now. I think he's had a good career, and I think a British Commonwealth, stick around there, earn as much as he can off it, and sit on that. But I could be the man to derail Kell Brook, but I've not even seen him mentioned in the same conversation.
Frankie Gavin,
yeah, he's floating around at welterweight and he's lethal.
What do you think of Frankie Gavin? He seems to have a lot of talent there.
I haven't seen him get out of gear yet. He just seems to beat people for fun, doesn't he? He's not something about him. His style isn't very attractive to me. I think it's because he's southpaw and the way he fights. You know, like he seems to have to grind guys down and things like that. He doesn't really get rid of people quick. But I think he's clever enough to beat Kell Brook.
That's what I think. I was very impressed with his fight against Vassell. I thought Vassell would have walked him down and actually stopped him. I really did.
I thought Vassell. I thought he would have beat Vassell, but I thought Vassell would have smashed him up and maybe dropped him a few times and hurt him. I think he broke. Did he not? I think he broke his jaw, his cheekbone, or something.
Gavin broke his jaw, and I was shocked.
He just destroyed him. Yeah. So that's, you know, I think the better the opposition, the better you see him fight. I think he probably fights to level his opposition a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I think he's in good hands with Frank Warren. So I think Warren will take him on and push him on. I think Frank Warren losing certain fighters. I think he knows what goes on, and I think he only wants a few fighters. I think he wants a few fighters to fight on his channel, and a lot of these that are crossing over. I don't even think he's bothered about it. To be fair, I know he'll be upset about Ricky Burns. I've heard a rumour Nathan Cleverly is leaving Warren. I'm good friends with the Cleverleys, but I don't ask them questions like that. Yeah. But I think he would probably be upset to lose Cleverly. But I think a lot of these young fighters that are crossing over to Eddie Hearn, I don't think Frank's that bothered about them, to be fair. But the thing about Cleverly, I mean, to be honest, I think Warren's looked after Cleverly pretty well from the outside looking in. I mean, he had a decent reign as world champion, and I would not suck him in with Kovalev. I said in the start, it was a bad move from the start. I said it. I looked at him. Go ahead.
I spoke to Vincent Cleverly. That's Nathan's dad and coach.
Yeah.
Every night. We was texting each other every night in the build up to the Kovalev fight, right up to the day of the fight. And Vincent was confident that Nathan would beat him. He said it was a fight that Nathan wanted, and then they thought they could beat him. But then when the fight started, Nathan sort of didn't really do anything that Vincent was telling him and done his own thing. But I think that I just think that Kovalev I rate Nathan Cleverly. I think he's good. I've been in the gym with him, I've worked with him, and I've seen him firsthand, and he's lethal. But the thing is, I just think that Kovalev is just different class altogether.
I said it. I said to everybody, this fight will not go past 4 rounds. I said that. I looked at the fight. He had a defense against a guy called Kuzmanovic or something like that. And Kuzmanovic rocked him in about the second or the third round of a punch. And I thought, you know what? If you're getting rocked by Kuzmanovic, and now you're going to fight a guy who's got dynamite in both hands, you don't stand a chance. And
when I watch Kovalev, like when sort of the first, because I'm busy doing my thing, I take my after ball with the pros a little bit, sort of coming through. You see names pop up and then they disappear again. And I only really saw Kovalev when Vincent sort of texted me his name, and I YouTubed him. And the YouTube footage I got, I wasn't that impressed with him, to be fair. I did something about him. I thought, nah, he looks a bit slow, maybe a bit ordinary. He's very average at things. So I thought, well, perhaps he's a bit over another one of his overrated fighters. But then when he got in and started finding his range against Cleverly, I just sat there and I just thought, it's going to be a bad night tonight. And it was before it was a bad night. But if you just go back to what you were saying about Warren, I've sat in a Peacock gym before with Nathan and Vincent chatting about the shifting of power and the tides of it in British boxing with the promoters. And Vincent was absolutely adamant. He said, we will never leave Warren, ever leave Warren. We'll never leave Warren. So, and we've spoke since then. And he always said, we'll never leave Warren. No matter what goes on, we'll never leave Warren. The Box Nation thing's great and all this. And he's always been paid on time. There's never been any problems. And then I walked into a gym Thursday morning and somebody's, I think it was either a manager or a promoter turned around and said, yeah, Cleverly's leaving Warren. So I just couldn't believe it when I heard it. Do you know what I mean?
My personal opinion, and for what it's worth, I think Nathan Cleverly mentally is finished as a fighter. I really do. I think the Kovalev fight has done more damage than people give Kovalev credit for. And you just look at Nathan's mannerisms. He just doesn't seem the same guy he was. He just seems vacant. Doesn't seem the same guy. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but maybe you'd know more than I do.
Yeah, there is something wrong because like I said the guy told the manager turned around and said to me, oh yeah, cleverly he probably is leaving Warren. I said, oh, I don't know about that, and sort of looked at him a bit miffed, and he said, Ross, he's pulled out his last 3 fights with Warren on Warren shows, and that got me thinking.
Yeah.
And I remember reading on I think it was like Sky News or something like that. Warren cleverly pulled out the last fight because he had a back injury.
Yeah.
Then just after I read it, I thought fair enough. And then I got a Facebook message from a guy in Spain, in a gym in Spain, we all know, saying, oh, there's a lad over here training really hard. Says he knows you. And then they sent me a photo of him through together, and it was Nathan working, like, was out there doing all his strength conditioning pads and that. So there's obviously nothing wrong with his back. Do you know what I mean? So, do you know, I just thought, well, fair enough, something's not right. You know what I mean? But I thought there are fights out there. They've always, for years since I've been talking to the Cleverleys, they've always been saying they wanted the Shumanov fight. Then I heard he was moving up to cruiser.
I don't think that's a good move either. I don't think he was a puncher at light heavy, and he definitely won't be a puncher at cruiser. And now you're looking at guys. If Kovalev did damage him at light heavy, imagine the likes of Lebedev and Guillermo Jones and Marcus Hock and Obalafi. Those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, light heavyweights are usually big super middles, but see these cruisers, right?
They're coming down from heavy.
These cruiserweights, they'll boil down. They use certain slimming tactics that I'm not going to talk about on here, and they boil down, and then see what a lot of them do is, after the weigh-in, they connect up to a drip. They can put like kilos on overnight, absolute kilos. You're getting a small heavyweight in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Against Nathan Cleverly, who probably is, you know, but Nathan's a big lad. He is a big lad, mate. Do you know what I mean? People when they see him, you'll be surprised that when you meet him, you'll be surprised how big he is.
Yeah.
But some of these cruisers are huge.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Terry Dunstan, he's well known on the British boxing scene. He's a massive bloke. And remember Cole Thompson and David A, they were huge, weren't they?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, it'll be interesting now. Tony Bellew's moved up to cruiserweight. I think that's the obvious fight to see. Bellew, Cleverly to cruiserweight.
I think that's a good fight. I wouldn't take the fight as far as Bellew. I just think that Cleverly beats him every time. I think his work rate alone, he knows a little bit too much, and Bellew's down as this huge puncher, but I can't. I'm not having it.
I don't see it.
Maybe in the amateurs he was, but not as a pro.
No, don't see it. I mean, he is. Who's he knocked out at world level? Who's he knocked out? He hasn't. So how can he be a big puncher? I've said this before.
Yeah.
People look at me and think I'm a bit crazy.
No, he's not. He's not a big puncher. But I tell you what, I like that. I like Tony Bellew. He loves boxing. He absolutely loves boxing. And I was gutted when he got stopped by Stevenson. I thought he'd been actually like, he was standing on the outside trying to catch Stevenson, keep it long and that. But I thought he looked better on the inside trading with him. He just seemed to have more in his arsenal than Stevenson. But, and I think, do you know what I mean?
Stevenson, to me, I like Stevenson, another good fighter, but he just seemed left-hand happy to me. That was the only punch he could have.
That's exactly what he does. He whips that left hand in. He whips that left hand. If you can get in close to him, I think, anyway, and stop him from loading up that left hand, there ain't nothing coming off the right hand, and he don't seem too great on you if you keep him close. If you try and box him on the outside, he just whip that left hand over every time. And I tell you what, he's massive. He's another massive fighter. I don't know how he makes the weight.
I would pick Kovalev to beat him, honestly.
Kovalev will beat everyone in the division. The only one who's going to beat Kovalev would probably be Andre Ward if he moved up. But I think you'd see Andre Ward having to get off the canvas a few times.
Yeah, that would be a great fight. What's your thoughts?
I think it's a fight you won't. I don't think you'll see that fight. I don't think it's a fight that they'll make. It'll be another great fight we don't see.
Yep, I don't think we'll see that fight. Golovkin's a big fighter that everyone's talking about. I still am not convinced.
No, I'm not convinced. I was talking to a friend called Brian James, who's quite, he's quite sort of notorious on Facebook. He knows he knows his boxing. He's very, him and Ben Doughty speak their mind and that. And when everybody was on there cheering about Gennady Golovkin, Brian James sort of went the other way and said, "No, I'm not that convinced." And you know what? I'm not either. I don't think he moves his head enough. No. I think I think, you know, all these Eastern European fighters coming through, they're tough and they're hard and they punch. They've got good basic boxing skills, but there's no sort of flair in their work. If you see what I'm saying, there's no sort of, do you know what I mean? There's no sort of head movement and nothing like that. And I think if you put Golovkin in, and a lot of people will want to shoot me for this, but I can see George Grove blowing his head off. I can see George. Oh, with that right hand, he was whipping in on Cole Froch. I think with no head movement, I think George Grove stop him or smash him up. Yeah, a lot of people won't agree with me. That's just my opinion.
Okay, while you're on the topic, George Groves, Carl Froch, your thoughts?
My thoughts on George Groves and Cole Froch?
Yeah.
Well, I always knew George Groves was going to surprise people in the first fight, and I knew if I had told anyone who listened to me, Froch was going to get up off the canvas probably to win the fight, but he weren't going to get it easy, and that's exactly what happened. But the thing is, these fighters like Froch and Purdy and all that, they prize themselves on being able to take one and land one. I saw how George Groves was hitting Glencoff Johnson, right? Yeah, and you can't be getting hit by people like that. His movement's great, and he just opens up with explosive combinations. And you can't be. He's the hardest puncher in the division, in the superweight division. I think George Groves, if they have a rerun, will build up the lead. In the first 6 rounds, I think he'll just jab and move the last stuff, and I think he'll steal it on points, and he'll have the whole public behind him. I don't think Cole Froch will take the fight.
No, I don't either. I don't think it's Eddie Hearn's interest.
At the same time, I don't want to write Cole Froch off because he's lethal. He's another one. You can't really. It would be wrong to write him off.
But then, how many times can you go to the well? How many times can you keep getting hit in the chin like that? I mean, he didn't look that great in the fight against Groves.
No, and a lot of people thought that Cole Froch was in a worse state than Groves was when he got dropped. You know, there was a lot of rounds where I don't think Froch even knew where he was a lot of the time in that fight.
There you
he
go.
looked absolutely desperate. I thought George Groves, I thought George Groves was amazing that night. And I was just absolutely gutted for him when they stopped the fight.
Yeah, that's fair play. I think.
But it's the way things have been conducted since then as well. Cole Froch hasn't done himself any. He's gone from hero to zero. I don't think he's public-wise and his credibility and respect from the British public. I don't think he's going to get that back now.
No, I don't think either. But I don't think he'll give a damn, to be honest. Froch he's always come across as a man who'll say what he believes and that's it. Although he does give me the impression that he's got a bit of a insecurity issue, and he's always looking to Eddie Hearn like his comfort blanket.
I've met Cole Froch, and he was nice to me, and I spoke to him. We had a chat, and we spoke about a few things. But he has got a kind of surly side to him, where he will speak his mind, and he has got I don't know how to describe it. He's got a kind of unsavoury side to him. Do you know what I mean? And I can imagine he can be quite a spiteful edge to him.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that spiteful edge, that sort of horrible side of him, I thought would pushed him back into the ring with Groves, but it hasn't.
No. I think he knows himself. I think, what's the point? I think in his mind, I mean, he wants to fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I
don't know where that is a joke. When I read that, I thought someone was winding me up.
No, it's serious.
Right? He wants big fights, and he's looking past George Groves. So he calls out Junior Chavez. Like, what's all that about? No one's interested in that fight. If that was in my garden, I'd close the curtains. I wouldn't be interested in that. No one's interested in that. He couldn't, you know.
If you remember rightly, let's go back in the superweight division. Going back, I think it was Steve Collins who pulled out of a fight against. I think he pulled out. Was it Joe Calzaghe he was going to face, or Robin Reed, one or the other?
He was supposed to fight Joe. He was supposed to fight Joe Calzaghe.
Right.
And Chris Eubank took the fight, and after the fight, Eubanks actually caught on film walking down the tunnel back to the change room, saying, "No wonder Steve Collins didn't want to fight him." Do you know what I mean?
And then after that,
Calzaghe
was going to fight. Froch wanted to fight Calzaghe, and Calzaghe didn't want to know. He wasn't interested because he didn't think Calzaghe deserved the fight. So now we have Carl Froch coming to the end of his career now, and he said, well, I'm going to do what Joe Calzaghe didn't do and give this young gun an opportunity. He's done that. Yeah. So now what happens? Does he go off and retire, or does he go on and fight Chavez and ignore what the public wants? Because I think Go on.
Yeah, I think that he should. I think he should just have like one massive fight now and call it a day. If he's reaching all his targets in the gym and all his run timing's all right and he's sparring, he's holding his own, and he's doing what he's doing, and he can still hit all his targets and make weight and he's eating everything's is how it should be, because he's the most professional boxer you ever meet, Cole Froch. He's absolutely phenomenal. Everything he does is written in his diary. He's absolutely on the ball with everything. He's a consummate professional. Absolutely. But the thing is, I think that the supermate division, I think he should jump up and fight Stevenson, the Canadian guy, Pascal. Or he ain't going to fight Kovalev. He isn't going to get the Ward fight. I think he should jump up and fight Stevenson and call it a day. Or they should try and make the Golovkin fight, which I think is a winnable fight for him.
I'd rather see him fight Pascal again. If you're going to I'm not. Do you know what? I'm not a fan of Pascal. I'll be honest with you. I sat up till 4 o'clock in the morning to watch both of them the other day, and people said it was a great fight. I didn't really enjoy it. Good luck to you. I didn't waste my time. I mean, if
I don't know why I've done it.
If Hopkins can do press ups during the round against Pascal, that's enough for me, to be honest. Well,
Pascal was saying Hopkins was on drugs, but then Pascal's built like a bodybuilder. Do you know what I mean? Isn't he? So, like, do you know, the thing is, what will get the Froch? I think the Froch Hopkins fight. I think that's a good fight.
Yeah, I do too. But I don't.
I think they keep it.
I don't see Froch beating Hopkins though.
Hopkins is very clever, mate. An old man, but then it'd be good to see. I just think that's a good fight. Do you know what I mean? The Groves fight's not going to happen. Who knows? James DeGale might end up getting the fight. Do you know what I mean?
James DeGale. Yeah. I mean, look at James DeGale's career. Good fighter, but I mean, you never have thought an Olympic champion would be fighting in a shopping mall. I mean,
yeah, it is a strange one. It is a strange one, and I've got a guy that started Winners Boxing with me. His name's Billy. He spars with James DeGale, and he really rates him. And one of my guys who's just turned pro has sparred James DeGale, and they really rate him. And Bill's been with Dan Barker and everyone, and he really rates James DeGale. So it's a bit funny what's that. I just don't think the public really took the James DeGale in the build up to the Groves fight. He didn't carry himself very well, and some of his remarks after the Olympics, I think he came across as a bit sort of irritating to the public, and he's never really been salted. The public never took a shine to him, which is a shame, because if you ever meet him in person, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's got time for everyone.
I think James needs to do more PR. He needs to do his own personal PR and start getting on doing.
He can't. He should be banned. The best thing for James DeGale is to be not allowed to speak in front of a camera. That's the best thing they can do for James DeGale is just he's not allowed to speak, because I don't think he knows how to behave in front of the camera. I love James DeGale, but he always says the wrong thing.
But I saw an interview the other day. I think it was with iFilm, and it was a really, really relaxed, cool interview. He just sounded really down to earth. He was like.
Yeah, he is down to earth. But then you get him in this big, you get him with a lot on something big, mate. Look at how he spoke to George Groves and that, mate. That was unbelievable on ringside, wasn't it?
It was, but I tell you something. Had he not done that, the fight would never have sold that way, because you couldn't expect George Groves to send it. Really? Would it?
I don't know. The British public know George Groves because he's from the amateurs, and they know DeGale from the Olympics. Yeah, so I think the fight was always going to sell. I don't know.
But the hype
did catch the public's imagination.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have captured the public imagination the same way, because DeGale sold the fight by being the bad guy and giving Groves being the good guy.
Yeah, because you've got to have in boxing. If you're not either a good guy or a bad guy, you ain't going to sell tickets, and you ain't going to sell. People are not going to be interested in you. You have to either be a good bad, or people are going to put their hand in their pocket to come watch you lose, or they're going to come in because they love you. Exactly. And it's very rare they love you. You know, people stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch Khan lose. Yeah, people used to stay up. They do. I promise you. Right?
I know.
The same they did Hamid and Eubank. You have to have a villain. You have to have one. The public love to watch a villain and hope that they get beat. That's the way it's doing. James DeGale kind of went down that road and messed it up. But see, Ricky Hatton, people love him. Right? He's like a god in British boxing. No matter what he does, they love him. Right?
Yeah.
But he pulled it off as a good guy, Carl Froch is now the bad guy. People are probably going to watch more people are going to watch him hoping that he's losing. It's weird boxing. It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's what they want. They want him to get knocked out. Everybody wants Carl Froch to get knocked out.
Now. They don't want to see.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That now.
Yeah, that's what they want to see. So, you know what I mean? You can't just be a nice guy in boxing. You either got to be a god and be loved, or you just got to be the bad, settle in and just accept you're going to have to be a bad guy and just talk loads of shit.
And well, Floyd Mayweather was the bad guy, and he just don't care. So he just does the bad.
I think he wakes up in the morning and decides what he's going to be, because I've seen him say some nice stuff, and then the next day he's made an idiot of himself. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's at the stage where he can just do what he wants.
Yeah, well, isn't that a great position to be in?
Yeah. I think so. I think when he finishes his career, like Roy Jones, I think he'll look back at his career and probably think there's a couple of fights maybe he should have had, and I think it will bother him a little bit.
Yeah. Let's finish on talking about the work you do with the underprivileged kids, because that's something that press don't really like to focus on as much. So let's talk a little bit more about what you do with those kids, because I think it's a very important issue there.
Yeah, it's kind of sort of quieting down to the lowest it's ever been at the moment because of other sort of demands. But I started training a child on a park bench to keep him boxing, keep him focused. And then I started, one child soon became 100, and I moved into premises, had gyms and things like that. And the idea was always, I wanted kids, the rich kids are never going to be they're always going to have options and iPads, iPhones, and always just do whatever they want. But the poor kids always usually turn out to be pretty good boxers, and that because they've got nothing else. So I've always sort of had the bad boys brought to me, the kids with issues, homeless, abused, bullied, ADHDs, things like that. Usually it all turns out to be poor nutrition and diet, right? But I straightened them all up, and that's what I've done. I took 3 nominations for Pride of Britain, 1 nomination for ITV Hero Award. I've got a massive media following over here. I've never won these awards because I don't give them to boxing people. Do you know what I mean? They never have. It's always been other things. Boxing's always been frowned upon. For every person that likes boxing and what I'm doing with these kids, there's always another one that go, well, we should be teaching them to fight. The kids shouldn't be getting it in the head. Yeah. So you're always, it's a double-edged sword. But no, yeah, winners boxing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Winners Boxing now has been up and running 4 years. It's for kids with issues. It's gone a little bit quiet at the moment because a lot of the kids have hit college, but I've got 4 or 5 fighting, maybe 6 fighting at the end of the month in front of 500 people, and a few gone off to the amateurs. Because we put these little shows on for them, and we sell 500 tickets straight away. It's big. It's 5 times bigger than the amateur shows over here, and we'll do 500 tickets easy. Do you know what I mean? To watch them, and they're good shows, and I'm always putting stuff on the Facebook, on the website. It's really busy, 300 hits a day. The kids have got new kit, they're buzzing. They'll all eventually end up going into the amateurs when the time's right, but there's always going to be kids that can't go into the amateurs because they've got an eye missing or kidney missing, or they're too mentally not right to go anywhere. But they'll always be with me. They'll always be by my side. Do you know what I mean? They'll always be looked after.
That's fantastic. Obviously, myself being a national community champion, there was I won an award back in 2010 and 11. They did a nomination to find people doing work in the communities, and it was a great honour myself to do it. But the most important part for me is those young people getting the opportunity to get highlighted what's happening in their communities, because the underprivileged communities, from what I notice in the UK, are very much overlooked. They're overlooked, and so when media do get
the thing is as well, I want to say this as well. I want to make this quite clear here now, right? I'm not the only person that does this, right? There's Paris Boxing Club in London do it for homeless people.
Doing an interview with them shortly. We'll be talking to them, so I haven't forgotten.
Yeah, they do. I've never been there, and I've never spoke to Paris Boxing Club, but I follow them, right? We've never met, but I'm a big fan of what they do.
Fantastic.
And I know down the TKO, they've got Omnibus, which is Tony Sesse. He does a lot of good work with the community.
Fantastic.
And I know, I think Lambeth Boxing Club?
Lambeth Boxing Club, yes. Seen them on Facebook.
They're having issues at the moment, mate. But listen, boxing's always been good like this. Everyone suddenly thinks I started all this stuff with the kids, mate. This has been going on years. There's people been doing this longer, on a bigger scale, longer than I have. So I'm just a freshman in this game with the kids, and that's just something I do. So I'm not, there's people doing it all over the UK, and the boxing community's been doing it for years. I'm the new boy on the block, so I'm kind of glad I didn't get them awards in one respect, because I think there's other people who deserve it more than me. You know what I mean?
I mean, I remember going back in. I did some work with Boxing for Schools. I don't know if you've ever heard of Boxing for Schools. Wayne Llewellyn.
Yeah, they're sort of bringing that. They're bringing that all back. Yeah, I remember Wayne Llewellyn. He's from Dartford.
Yeah, I was doing work with him as a boxing tutor. I was one of his first boxing tutors. And
the boxing tutor.
Yeah.
See what they're doing now? These people are getting these ABA boxing tutors courses, saying they want to help kids box and all this. They're going off starting opening gyms with them over here and like starting white collar scene and that. So I'm one of them people. I'd like to see the boxing tutor course get binned. To be fair.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because I mean, I did the boxing tutor course, but to be fair, I was working with Wayne and Julius Francis, so those guys were really working.
Yeah, Julius is quality guy, yeah.
Yeah, so I was working with those guys, and we were part of building the Frankfurt Boxing Academy. But I stopped within about a year and a half doing it. I went back to doing my cricket, because that was what I really loved doing at the time, and I wanted to finish that off, so I went to travel and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
It was a great opportunity to do that stuff, but there was no way I would have gone and opened a boxing gym up, because I didn't feel comfortable not having the proper experience, and those guys who do it for a fair play to them, but there's a problem.
Every dad that walks into the gym, what you done then, and then they bullshit you that you was a boxer and they'd done a bit when they was younger. So everyone, you're always up against it, and you know, especially I'm a one-man band. I've never had funding. Everything I've had to go off and get it myself, and all the rest of it. And I've gone without a lot. I've suffered. You know, my private life's been hard because of it. But you know, I'm through the other side now, and we're turning people pro now. Do you know what I mean? What else? That's, you know, we're turning, you know, where I live, I've turned more boys pro and got more pros. And then there was no professional boxers in Chelmsford for decades, right? Probably hasn't been any. And then I've got 6. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, like all these other clubs in the area that have always given me attitude and they made derogatory comments about me, and they have done, you know, they've benefited from my boxing because the people that I haven't been able to train have gone to their clubs. I've made boxing cool again.
What's the common misconception about Ross Woolgrove? The one thing that you probably get all the time on Facebook said about you, people who don't know you. What's the common misconception?
I have a lot of people, right? They read the wacky stuff I put on Facebook, the silly jokes, the daft photos and all that, and they think I'm a bit of a live wire. And I can be a little bit of a live wire, because if you're not, you get walked all over in this game. But I'm the big softie, really. Do you know what I mean? And I think the misconception is me. So I was a doorman for years. I've been in the army, quite a big lad, 15 stone, smuggling tattoos. A lot of people probably think I'm a bit of a thug. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not. Do you know? That's the thing. And I do put a lot of stuff on the old social media, but that's just a bit of fun. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you know, it's nothing, you know, the boxing, when you come to my gym, I'm absolute consummate professional. I'm a perfectionist. And that's why my juniors haven't lost a fight in 4 years. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm an absolute perfectionist.
Okay, let me just do this from I'm a devil's advocate. Let's play. I don't like playing devil's advocate, but let's throw it this way.
Yeah.
Let's say the things you're doing on social media are representing you, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Do you think that possibly that if you showed more of the stuff that you actually do in the community and less of the live wire stuff, that potentially that could swing things the other way for you?
No, I know, to be fair, mate. Twitter's all boxing. My website is all boxing.
I know.
And my Essex boxing trainer's all boxing. I think just my little personal account, I do like to put a joke on there. Nothing derogatory. I'm not racist. I'm not homophobic or anything like that. I think my sense of humour, I think that's done me the world of good, because people know that I like to have it. I'm a boxing coach, right? And personal trainer. All the, I've got about 15, 16 different qualifications. I like to have a beer and a pizza like the next man. A lot of people will come and train with me because they know I'm down to earth. I'm a normal guy. Yeah. You know, a lot of the coaches, they look like Greek Adonises and that just puts people off.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I don't put pads videos out to make me look good. I don't put promotion, everything that goes out ain't to make me look good. It's all about the fighter next to me or in front of me. Do you know what I mean? So everybody, all the clubs in the area say no one can market a fighter like I can. Do you know what I mean?
So when you see coaches with their boxing, people doing things with pads and stuff like that, what are your thoughts? What goes through your mind?
You look at first, it's good that they're boxing, they're putting things up and making the kids feel good or the fighter feel good, but a lot of the time I see pads videos and things like that, and it's about making the pad man look good. And the first thing I do is look at their feet. They're usually punching from the hip, the chin's too high, and their feet are flat-footed, and they've thrown 50 shots without even making a step forward or back. So the thing is, a lot of it is rubbish, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But if it's getting people through the door and buying boxing stuff and boxing, then fair play. Do you know what I mean? The ones that do wind me up sometimes are when I see these kid videos, the next world champion, the next kid prodigy videos being posted all over the wall, inbox to me. what you're doing is you're putting pressure on a 10-year-old, 7-year-old kid, and it's too much, you know. And usually, it's all this Mayweather pads and things like that, and it's not real boxing. Do you know what I mean? And what happens when they get hit on the chin? Do you know what I mean? It's like hitting the pad. What happens when you get? Let's see one of them getting it on the chin. I just think we're putting with social media. These kids coming through, we're putting too much pressure on them. And people just need to calm down. And it's a lot of the time, it's the coach trying to make himself look good, exploiting the kid. Do you know what I mean? Saying, look what I've done with this 4-year-old. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's things like this. It's things like this that the big media outlets like Sky and Box Nation need to do interviews like this that make boxing fans more aware, that make fathers and mothers and young people aware of what's going on in the sport, and get rid of these Hall of Fraud trainers.
Ringside we're going to do. Yeah, Ringside we're going to do a feature on me, but like it never happened. I suppose with the Froch Groves fight and everything went on with that, I suppose they had loads to talk about for in the next 2-3 months. So I lost my Ringside episode. Do you know what I mean? But
Bayloric have done it now with you, and don't be surprised if Ringside come back afterwards and try to do one with you afterwards. So don't be surprised.
Yeah. Tweet and miss. Tweet and miss.
So, okay, just to finish up, Ross, how do people contact Ross Woolgrove and they want to know more about Winners Boxing? How do they contact you?
You just type my name in on Google, ROSSWOOLGROVE, or Winners Boxing, which is www.winnersboxing.net. Or basically, if you just go on any famous fighter, boxing person's coach or boxing forum, just type my name in, or mention my name. Someone will know me. I'm known all over the boxing scene, pretty much all over the world. Do you know what I mean? I see Keith Thurman training one of my t-shirts the other day. Do you know what I mean? So
excellent stuff, Ross Woolgrove. It has been a real pleasure talking to you. So down to earth, so open, so honest. And I'm sure a lot of the YouTube community and the boxing community are going to love listening to what you have to say.
Thank you, mate.
Really appreciate it. Thanks again for talking to Bayloric TV.
Always a pleasure, mate. I'll speak to you soon, okay?
You take care. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Bye.